If you're in the market for a new ute, the options can be pretty overwhelming. Hilux, Ranger, Amarok, BT50, Navara, the list goes on. And soon, Kia will bring its Tasman ute to the market, as well as BYD will bring its Shark ute to the market. But does Australia have too many utes? Some utes are getting pretty expensive in 2024, with a few Ford Rangers, Hiluxes and Amaroks now asking well over $70,000 before on-road costs. But do you need to spend that sort of cash to get a ute that's perfect for work and play? Well, enter this. The new generation Mitsubishi Triton. Compared to the last MR generation of Triton, this one is a little bit longer than before, just 15 millimeters. However, it's a little bit wider, 50 millimeters. And for 2024, it's got a revised 2.4 litre engine with an extra turbocharger. But I want to answer in this video a couple of quick questions. Is this enough of an upgrade, this 2024 Triton? Is it a good value proposition? And most of all, is it premium enough? In the words of Mitsubishi Australia, the new Triton delivers a premium ownership proposition, from vehicle specification, quality and value, to the dealership experience and after-sales support. So with that being said, it's time to see what the Triton's like in the real world. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe, as always, to Chasing Cars. Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car. Brought to you by Budget Direct. So what exactly is the Triton we have on test today? Well, this is a GLS variant, so it's basically one underneath the top spec GSR. This car's priced at about $59,000 before on-road costs. However, this one's got a few extras on it, including a deluxe leather pack, as well as premium paint and a tow bar fitted as well. All in all, it's about $64,000 before on-road costs. So with that pricing, it puts it pretty close to an Isuzu D-Max X-Terrain or a Toyota Hilux SR5. So this Triton isn't exactly the same bargain that it was years ago. So what do I think about the looks of this new Triton? Well, the front end is very different to how it was before. I find it's a little bit flat and it's very busy. There's a lot of chrome going on. You've got these nice DRLs and the nice LED headlights, but I just think it's a bit overdone, if that makes sense. So here we are in the front seat of the Mitsubishi Triton GLS. What are my first impressions? Well, in terms of the cabin materials, it's not too bad in here. This has the deluxe pack on it, so it's got these really soft, comfortable leather seats. I think they're a big win and one of the reasons why I have felt so comfortable in this car over the last week or so. You've got a nice leather rimmed steering wheel, nicely finished. Some of the materials in here are a little bit cheap though. Although they're soft door cards, the top bits are really scratchy and very cheap feeling. Sure, it might be good for if it's a work ute and it's going to get grubby all the time, you want something that's easy to clean, then definitely those sort of materials are fine. But there's so much difference happening in this interior. There's like this chrome sort of material around the place, and then there's this weird carbon fiber or fake carbon fiber down on the door cards as well, which is a little bit strange. They've sort of thrown everything at this interior and every possible combination of materials. So in terms of technologies for this Triton, front and center is a new 9-inch display, which is pretty good. Its infotainment is okay. You've got navigation and stuff all in there, but for most part, people are going to be using Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wired Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. And that works pretty well. The Android Auto is really fast. I found that I just plugged it in with the cable and it was very fast, especially with the steering wheel buttons, like changing song, etc. There's no delay. For the driver, there's an instrument cluster front and center. It's 7 inches in size. And of course, there's plenty of menus you can go through. You can see how the car's working, what mode you're in terms of the four-wheel drive system, and of course your fuel economy as well. There's 2 analog gauges on either side, which is always nice to see. However, it's pretty good having a digital speedo front and center. Now, in terms of other features for this new Triton, you get dual zone climate control. You get these cool like tactile switches down below here that just controls your fan speed and stuff, which is good that it's separate from the touchscreen. Thank goodness it's not put into the touchscreen. Everything's crammed in there. Instead, you've got your own bar for climate control, so that's a big win. Down below there, you've got your 12-volt socket, you've got your rear diff lock button, you have USB-C and USB-A ports, as well as your start-stop engine button. Down in the center, you've got a lot of piano black going on here. I'm not a big fan of that. It gets dirty very easily. You've got your hill descent control, your drive mode selector, and of course your four-wheel drive mode selector, which is very important. 2 high, 4 high, and then 4 low, which you push down for. Also, it's worth noting that you have 2 cup holders here, front and center. You've got a wireless charging pad. The door bins are pretty large. They can fit a decent water bottle in there. You've got a sunglass holder up here. So it's pretty practical. And you've also got 2 glove boxes, one on the top and one on the bottom as well, which is really handy. So altogether, it's a pretty practical package in the front seat, but there's just so much going on in terms of material choice. They could have simplified it quite a lot. So here I am now in the back seat of the Mitsubishi Triton GLS. Look, these seats are pretty comfortable. They're nice and soft on the base and also on the back here. I've got enough knee room here. Toe room's okay. Headroom is a little bit tight, but you know, I'm about 5'11", so pretty average height, and I'm pretty comfortable with the seat in my regular driving position. So it's probably okay for adults for short distances, but I think it might get a little bit cramped back here for a longer road trip. In terms of features back here for the rear occupants, you have magazine holders on both of the seats. You've got a 12-volt plug, and you've also got a USB-C and a USB-A port down there as well. You've got a fold-down armrest here with 2 cup holders. Nice and chunky, pretty solid, feels well built. And you've also got lights at the back here, as well as the fan speed, and you've got the little fan speed vents on the roof too, which is kind of cool. You don't see that in every dual cab. And in terms of feel back here, look, it is a little bit more basic than the front seat. There's a lot of scratchy plastics. There's more piano black, and there's some fake carbon fiber as well on the door trims. The door bins are pretty decent. You'll be able to put a decent bottle in there if you wish. So what's the tray like at the back of the Mitsubishi Triton? Well, just open it up here. It's not a damped tailgate, so it will drop if you don't watch out. It's a little bit heavy. It doesn't have a damping system like you'd find in an Isuzu D-Max. Now inside you've got a pretty decent tray. It's 1500mm long and about 1100mm across between the wheel arches. There's a couple of tie down points in here. There's no power outlet back here. And also it doesn't have the flexible rack system like what you'd find on a Nissan Navara, so that might be a bit of a struggle if you're using it for work purposes. But of course you also have a little tub liner, stop scratching, which is a real good thing. So let's talk a little bit now about running costs. Mitsubishi Australia has a pretty awesome 10-year, 200,000 kilometre warranty. However, you have to have it serviced at a Mitsubishi dealership to get that. Otherwise, it's 5 years or 100,000 kilometres. In terms of servicing for this new Triton, it'll cost $2,445 over a 5-year period, with services needing to happen every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, whichever occurs first. As for fuel efficiency, Mitsubishi says this Triton can do about 7.7 litres per 100 kilometres. We got between 7.5 and 8.5 litres per 100 in the real world in a mix of driving situations. As for fuel tank size, this Triton has a 75 litre tank, and it also requires AdBlue. So what's the new Triton like to drive? Well, let's talk about first what's under the skin of this car. It's a 2.4 litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder engine. It now has an additional turbocharger, which is pretty good in terms of the outright numbers. This engine now produces 150 kilowatts of power and 470 newton meters of torque. Now this engine is mated to a 6-speed torque converter automatic transmission, and it's paired to a 2-wheel drive / 4-wheel drive system, just depending on what mode you're in. Now this engine is certainly strong, but I found it's a little bit rattly and unrefined compared to some other turbo diesels on the market. For instance, I was in a Nissan Navara last week. It has a 2.3 litre twin turbo engine, and it was just a sweeter unit. It was smoother and the power delivery was more linear thanks to those 2 turbos. However, this sequential turbo system in this car just doesn't feel the same. Now in terms of the transmission, that 6-speed unit, it's okay, but it sort of shifts quite abruptly and a little bit unrefined, especially when it's cold. Like you get in it first thing in the morning and it just is very hesitant with the shifts. I think that could be a little bit better too. Now around town, the Triton is a firm ride, but again, what ute isn't firm around town, especially with a leaf sprung rear suspension? It's just a really sort of rough and ready sort of system. It's just a little bit too much for day-to-day livability. I feel for people who are sitting in the back seat of the Triton, especially young kids. They might even feel a little bit motion sick because this is a firm ride. But once you get the Triton up to speed and you get onto the highway like we are now, it does settle somewhat. I'm sure if you put a canopy or some weight in the back of the ute, it would fix some of the jitteriness of this suspension setup. But on the highway, you know, at about 80, right up to 110, it definitely does ride better, which is a relief, because otherwise this would be a pretty uncomfortable car in most situations. So what else do I like about the Triton and the way it drives? Well, the steering for one is really light and quite responsive, unlike something like a Navara or a 79 series ute, which are just so slow with their steering racks. This feels a lot better, nice and light, easy to use. And while I'm saying that, I'd also say that this is an easy car to drive. It is a big car, it's longer than the old Triton, but you just got to be aware of it, especially when you're taking corners and obviously when you're parking. This does have parking sensors, it's got a 360-degree camera, and I think it's well equipped to sort of handle the daily grind. However, this would be a good work ute as well. You're just gonna have to put up with that firm ride. During our week-long evaluation, we also took time to take Mitsubishi's ute off the bitumen and into a part of the world where many utes will spend some of their lives. I had the opportunity to drive the Triton on a series of off-road trails, which included moments where I could test the articulation of the vehicle, the overall ground clearance, and most importantly, the four-wheel drive and low-range aspects of the transmission. I found that the Triton was overall pretty impressive. I put the ute into its full-time 4-high position, and the Triton did the forestry trails, washouts, and rocky terrain pretty easily, and without any moments of slip or hesitation. The Triton largely succeeds thanks to its well-tuned and capable Super Select four-wheel drive system, active yaw control, and the standard fitment of a rear differential lock. As for the raw off-road facts, the Triton has 228 mils of ground clearance, a 23.4 degree breakover angle, a 30.4 degree approach angle, and a departure angle of 22.8 degrees. To compare, a Nissan Navara STX has just 214 mils of ground clearance and a 22.1 degree breakover angle. Now I have to address the elephant in the room, and that is the safety assistance systems in this vehicle. In particular, the DMS or driver monitoring system. It's just so annoying. It bongs at you all the time. If you take your eyes off the road to literally look at the navigation or the touchscreen or even the side mirrors, it says that you're not paying attention. Now, I got in it the other day and it said I was drowsy. I'd just woken up, and yet it kept alerting every 30 seconds that I was drowsy. It just kept going and going and going. And I was wide awake. But then when I did start yawning in the afternoon, it didn't pick it up. So I think it's a little bit unpredictable, and it doesn't sort of know exactly what it wants to tell you. It's different in almost every situation, and I just think that comes down to poor tuning. Now in this video, I have addressed that this is going to be fixed. Mitsubishi is going to fix these Tritons. The ones that are already on the road, you can go and get them serviced and you can get a software update. But also, those new Tritons from the factory will have a revised version of the driver monitoring system. On Friday, 19th of July, Mitsubishi Motors Australia issued an announcement regarding the DMS, or driver monitoring system. Mitsubishi has officially confirmed it has enhanced the DMS system and raised the minimum speed threshold. The brand has also said that for those examples already on the road, the DMS will be fixed at the ute's next service or outside of service time at the customer's request. Brand new Tritons will have an updated software installed at the factory. Mitsubishi has confirmed that the update will not affect the model's 5-star ANCAP safety rating. I can't wait to try out the new DMS system in the near future, so stay tuned to Chasing Cars for a future video about this. Now in terms of other safety stuff, this is an ANCAP 5-star car. It's got a whole ton of safety assistance systems, too much for me to remember right now, but I think it is a safe ute. It just needs to have its systems tuned a little bit better. So all in all, the driving experience is quite typical of a ute, this Triton. It doesn't really push the game forward. It's got quite a loud engine, firm suspension, and a little bit of a confused transmission. But in terms of seat comfort and other things like practicalities, it's a good package. So what are my honest thoughts on the new Mitsubishi Triton GLS after a week of driving it around pretty much everywhere, commuting, off-road, on-road, I did it all. Well, I must say I'm a little bit disappointed in the Triton, mainly because that 2.4 litre engine, as good as it is in terms of its punch, it's really loud and clattery and a little bit unrefined. The 6-speed automatic transmission, it's not too bad, but it's quite clunky and you can really feel those shifts happening, and I just think it could be a little smoother, like some of the other utes on the market have a little bit more refinement in that sector. And I have to say it, those safety systems, they just weren't up to scratch. That DMS system is just so intrusive, so annoying. If you take your eyes off the center of the road for 1 second, it bongs at you and carries on. And I just think it should never have left the factory with it like that to start with. I know there's an update coming, but still, it's something to improve on in the future. So I go back to the questions that I posed at the very start of this video. Is this a big enough upgrade over the old Triton? I honestly think that in terms of styling, definitely. In terms of its interior comfort, it's pretty good. but I just don't think it moves the game forward enough. And although Mitsubishi says this is the most premium Triton ever, sure it might be, but it's still some way off the really premium utes like the Ford Ranger and the Volkswagen Amarok. But what do you think about the new Mitsubishi Triton? Would you take one over a BT50 or a Navara or even a Hilux? Well, let us know down in the comment section below. And while you're there, make sure you like and subscribe as always to Chasing Cars.